Who's Listening? School Climate and Restorative Solutions by Jacques Lesure. So here we are, about 4 months later in Cape Town. I, like others in my cohort, have had the amazing opportunity to immerse myself in a service setting and learn more about the social, cultural, political, and spatial landscape of a country that is priding itself in being in motion. I, too, have had to stay in motion as I adjust and adapt to the variety of contexts that overlay at my service site in Athlone. Ned Doman High School is led by Principal Mr. Philander and a zealous group of teachers and staff. It services a population of about 600 students representing many languages, economic backgrounds, and ethnic groups. These students come from neighborhoods both near and far. Mr. Philander has been the principal at Ned Doman for 8 years to date. Although very fond of his role as an education advocate, on any given day, he and the staff is faced with limited resources such as time and school finances, a shortage of teachers and staff, discipline duties, and many other challenges. These factors were quick to come into play at my time at Ned Doman, which led to an initial interest by Mr. Philander and I to work on organizing his workspace and seeing more ways that he could operate more efficiently. Little did I know, my contribution to this task would become much different as time progressed. In early March, a group of 5 grade A students were brought into the office. They had been found passing around and consuming a marijuana edible in a classroom. This was a serious offense in the school's code of conduct. Although there were mixed reactions from the students themselves, the situation was taken very seriously. Police and parents were called into the school, drug tests were administered, and potential consequences were discussed. I was witnessing the situation firsthand. I saw a glimpse of potential for a different approach with the students. The principal permitted that I work with them, and I quickly got in gear to begin to introduce restorative approaches to school discipline. This now meant that I would be seeking ways to foster restorative justice in which we would seek to involve the whole community in a collaborative effort to repair harm, address root causes, allow the responsible person to make amends, and allow harmed persons and responsible persons to reintegrate into their schools and communities in productive and positive ways. I began to engage in bi-weekly restorative circles. We utilize a format called Circles of Understanding, a format that does not require that we reach a consensus, but rather develop a more complete picture of the context or reason for a particular event or behavior. My encounters with the grade A group began in a somewhat coerced fashion. I fumbled to forge relationships and eventually realized that something was missing. During these circles, I started to realize that students highlighted the ways that they perceive trust, school history, and leadership as some of the main reasons that they engaged Ned Doman in the way that they did. While there was an initial effort to solely engage students in a self-reflection, there would be no way of discussing one without the other. To do so seemed unproductive and disingenuous. Once I understood that there were more pertinent issues around school climate that could explain student behavior in the absence of the construct of discipline, I quickly shifted my focus. There was a new problem. The problem was that a healthy school climate, broadly defined by stakeholders as effective school discipline, student buy-in into the values of the school, and the production of fruitful relationships, was failing to exist at a sufficient level. This led to an unproductive amount of strain experienced by all types of stakeholders at Ned Doman. This led me to my research questions. How do students' perspectives and narratives on climate at Ned Doman impact their behavior? What are some potential restorative solutions that can be introduced and one day implemented? I saw no better way to approach these research interests than to assemble what soon became a dream team. Joyce, Mendisa, Blessed, and Zizi Belly were 4 grade 11 girls with a tenacity and work ethic that anyone would marvel at. They agreed to lead a participatory action research project at Ned Doman around themes of school discipline, school image, communication, trust, leadership, and understanding. Their willingness to see change in their school environment was the core of the little success that I did have in my time at Ned Doman. I remain in awe of their capacity for educational leadership at such a young age. In their bios, they wrote, "I'm Medisa, a 16-year-old from South Africa." And the reason for my involvement in the research group is because I felt incentive and I would like to see our school improve in the near future. The next one wrote, "I'm Joyce. I'm 18 years old and from Congo, DRC. I got involved in the research group because I felt it was a good step for my school to progress in many ways and that I can do something for change in my school, Ned Doman High." The third one wrote, "My name is Zizi Belly and I'm 18 years old, originally from Eastern Cape, but currently I stay in Cape Town and Khayelitsha. I joined this project because I'm a proud Ned Doman High School learner. Therefore, I want my school to have a good image and I want to help improve certain things like discipline in my school." The last one wrote, "My name is Blessed. I'm 17 years old. I did this project because I want to see a change in my school. I want my school not to be like any other schools. I want my school to be an example of discipline and morals." So now on to methods. As mentioned before, the restorative circle formats that I used were an initial opportunity for me to collect descriptive data while still having meaningful engagement with the students. They were not brought in as researchers, so I was more than willing to test the waters when it came to how we spent our short time together. We would watch music videos, learn a little science, joke around, and overall have discussion. Since circles of understanding required no serious decision making, it was much more useful to get students engaged and interested to begin discussion. In the case of a restorative methodology, these circles were the methods. Much was drawn from these experiences, and they were fruitful to later efforts. The methodology used with my second group, the grade 11 girls, was youth participatory action research. This is when student and adult partners research school and community issues and take action. Each one of our sessions was a sort of working group aimed towards contextualizing the research interests, centering their experience as stakeholders, and developing tools and skills that could be used to gather more data at Ned Doman. We determined, alongside the principal, that in order to gather this data long term, a sort of research design will need to be the product of our work with each other. This resulted in the creation of a survey tool by the 4 girls that gathers both quantitative and qualitative data. Towards the end of the semester, I administered the survey questions in the form of a focus group with the Representative Council of Learners, or RCLs as they're formally known. A group of 15 students formally elected to represent the student body in matters of the school. Throughout the project, I had the honorable but unnerving responsibility of being the ongoing oversight of my own ethics. Mr. Philander, the students, and the staff had a great deal of trust in me. At first, I saw this to be a potential matter of cultural norms and differences, or healthy partnerships between CIEE and Ned Doman. However, I could not remove my own positionality as an English-speaking American study abroad student from the way in which I was trusted in the environment. Regardless, this ended up being helpful to my success. Throughout my time, I embraced an on-the-go ethical practice that included constant check-ins, open lines of communication, and authenticity about what could be achieved in my time with students. Furthermore, I saw my role as a short-term outsider as rationale for cautiousness towards the kinds of conversations and discourse that I would engage in with students. While the goal was always to foster critical and thoughtful behavior in students, I could not commit long-term to offering the resources necessary to address the impact of such engagement. This remained an ethical concern that I struggled to manage throughout the entire process. The findings were striking. Students could benefit from structural improvements to the way that they are listened to. This applies whether they are elected leaders, repeated offenders of school rules, or even somewhere in between. More formally recognized methods of feedback and channels of communication could be introduced to begin to do so. The RCL structure is a reasonable starting point. However, it cannot be under-acknowledged by students and staff as a pivotal role in the school environment. The new NED domain will be able to incorporate greater shared governance for all stakeholders in the school community, with a focus on how diverse student voices can be centered. The second finding was that students have ideas about safety that directly impact their behavior in the school. For students, improvement upon their safety, both on and off school grounds, will be seen as a proxy for true restoration of communication, understanding, and discipline at NED domain. Thus, it can be understood that in their perspective, an increase in strictness and no-tolerance policies, as opposed to valuing a brand of authentic care, does not address their needs. The last main finding is that students believe there to be value in a collectively understood set of principles and goals in which everyone can be held accountable to. While school mottos and songs are conventional proxies for such an understanding, most are unaware of what binds the school community in terms of values. This inconsistency is reflected in the variety of attitudes they possess around school image and pride. In conclusion, healthy school climate and educational justice at NED domain are inextricably linked to themes of trust, communication, leadership, and understanding. These themes undergird and explain student behavior. Without addressing harm done within these themes in their entirety, there is no real possibility for effective school discipline. Neither will there be student buy-in into the values of the school or fruitful relationships available to be made for all. This impacts the way students engage things like code of conduct, leadership roles, classrooms, and other things. Teachers and staff play a pivotal role in adjusting their framework about management to value student voices. These changes in perspective must be reflected in the actual structure and policy of the school. Much more consistent student feedback needs to be collected, and there are now students trained at NED domain who will be returning next year that can be the leaders of this engagement. There is a potential for restorative approaches to addressing student behavior and contribution, but only by repairing school climate first. Thank you.